Hello and welcome to the Inner Gamer Next, where we play a video game and figure out if it should or shouldn't be next up on your video game playlist. And today we dive into Greedfall.
So engage in a core role-playing experience, forge a destiny of a new world seeping with magic and filled with riches, lost secrets, and fantastical creatures. With diplomacy, deception, and force, become part of a living world and shape your story. But essentially, it's like kind of a mix between you're like in the colonial era, but then you got like weird monster shit that are like hanging around. And it's developed by Spiders, who hasn't done anything like super huge, but they've done a lot of like 7s out of 10s kind of games.
Right.
So anyway,
they're kind of all over the place. They're either like okay or not very good at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, you jump in this world and it's very Fable-esque.
Interesting.
And I really enjoy that about it. It's kind of like, I don't want to say Victorian era, but it's a little farther in advance. Like you have swords and guns, right? And you're dressed up in like French attire. Obviously, they're French developers, so obviously you look more French than anything. But British sounding people, over in that area and stuff, and you kind of just jump into this world as someone of power and wealth and notoriety, and you're just thrown into this world to kind of be an emissary for this trade group that you're a part of, and you're dealing with different factions and trying to maintain order and allegiances, and the story throws you through loops to make decisions over time, like who you want to go for. Eventually, a native group is brought into one of the factions that you are with, and you get different followers over time from these factions. That if you're not paying attention to how you're dealing with situations, some people will turn on you.
Yeah.
And obviously other people will enjoy you. So you're putting that line in the sand for certain individuals. So it's interesting to see. When I first jumped into it, I thought the world was very well developed in the sense of like you start off in a city, I guess the capital city or the home city of where you are part of, and it's very well detailed. I was running around the city and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. It's a small area, so I was like, well, it's the intro area, so it's nothing like too exciting. But you got a lot of houses, you filled the part, like you're in that city, you're living it. And then eventually you go to this island, which is the whole point, and you're trying to settle the island. And you go to this port city, so it's like another city, right? So it's kind of similar to some degree. But then once you leave the city, I was actually blown away by the surrounding areas. It's all vegetation and some animals and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, this actually looks really good. What I didn't enjoy was, I didn't know what to expect. Now this is a 30-man indie team, so they can't do everything in the world, but for what they did world-wise and stuff, like it looks really good. And so you go into these small they're not even open world, they're not even open spaces. They're just like very linear. You go into this part between towns, and there's beasts there you can kill. There's things you can find along the way that are hidden in these areas, and you can get some side quests along the way. And but yeah, looking at the way that they designed it, it looks really good from the outside. But when you go to the map, you can see how linear all these little areas are, and it kind of sucks. But I understand there's limitations that they can't take the liberties to do certain things as they would because they're strapped for cash, And in that sense, like I'm really blown away that they try to take on a Bioware-esque game in that fashion, where you have, side missions, you have a bunch of different people, a bunch of different factions that you have to deal with narratively, and trying to navigate all that is very difficult. I can only imagine making the game is very difficult in that sense. And, for a Bioware-esque game, you would traditionally see kind of open world areas in that sense. And, Bioware does really good at that. I'm thinking of Dragon Age. Dragon Age is a great comparison to this game. And
was Dragon Age open area?
It was open area.
So it was very much like Mass Effect, where you came to this space and you could kind of like pick your paths a little bit, but it wasn't go anywhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you can explore the whole area within a certain set of time. It's not like World of Warcraft or something like that, Obviously, nothing's like World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Got some notes here.
Of course it isn't.
So they actually had decent voice acting for the characters, and they're all very believable, and I was very impressed with that. Like, they took the time to voice act a lot of stuff. And I was like, man, for a small team, that is impressive.
Yep.
So obviously there's cutscenes, and I thought they had some pretty good cinematography for it, like to tell the story. And as you're talking to people, like the camera kind of cuts away to different angles to give you like different variations and it doesn't get stale. And it seems kind of automated in a way, which it probably is, but at the same time, like I think they do a good job with that. The music fits very well, sets the theme and the mood for all the scenes and areas that I've been in.
What kind of does the music kind of have a like a colonial sounding vibe, or is it?
Yeah, it just has like that Victorian era sound and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I can't really describe it too much. I mean, it's just like, fantasy.
It doesn't sound like
fantasy.
new, like it's not like electronic music or anything like that. It
very sets the mood for that time and era.
Yeah. Okay.
Talked about the cities. You're able to pick what you say in dialogue, and it does have some effect, but it's very much like Mass Effect 1, where it's like you're saying certain things, and you pretty much know what the outcome's going to be. It's not very ambiguous, which I feel like it should be. But then again, it is a small team, so they can't really, it's where you're going to put your money and time into. And I don't want to say it's lacking, but it's there. So that's good. And what I was really impressed is that not only can you talk to certain people about the quests and stuff, but you can also talk to them about the world, their faction, certain events in the world that have happened, like wars and stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, that's really cool. Like you can actually dive in and figure out how this faction or person ties into the world and their, potential reference to that, like how they were engaged in it. So it's like, okay, there's some good world building here. It's not just, hey, talk to me, do a quest. Okay, bye.
Yep.
And then they have a day and night cycle, which I thought was impressive to add into this. But I guess in 2019, I don't think it'd be that hard to do, but I don't know. It seems like it's Unreal Engine, so maybe that's part of the features to it. I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah. So, again, this is an indie studio, so there's obviously some faults here, or they have some negatives of this game, in my opinion. The mouth animations do not match at all, and it's really annoying.
Yeah.
That could be make or break for some people. It's very Andromeda in that sense, where they just couldn't get that right. Now, I don't know if it's because they don't have the technology or they're limited. Obviously, they're strapped for cash and time. So I'm sure that was an issue. When you go into the cutscenes, some of the textures are not that great. And I figured, looking, it's one of those things where on most games, if you look at the world as a whole from like a perspective, like it looks really good. But once you like go into a rock or certain textures, like you can just tell they're not that great, right? Now, that's probably a limitation of, I don't know. I feel like there's also that kind of like push and pull of like how do we want the game to run? Because it runs pretty smooth. I feel like I have it on high. I don't have it on ultra, but for the most part, it runs at about 55 FPS on my PC.
Yeah.
And so they might have just taken the liberty of just making the textures not as great. But then again, I feel like it is 2019, so the textures should be pretty good.
Yeah. It just might be their budget running on older engines, so it's not being able to get their own textures and put together.
Right. And so each city kind of has like their own governor or person in control of the city, their own mayor, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And you go from the outside, the buildings look different, but when you go inside, they're all structured the exact same way, and they just have different wallpaper and or clutter on the wall and stuff. Yeah. So like you walk in,
like the same.
Oh yeah, it's cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So you walk in and there's just this long area and there's stairs in the back. On every single one, you go right up the stairs and you make another right, and the door to the same like chamber for the governor is
that
right there.
That reminds me of
come on,
No
guys.
Man's Sky with their ships that you land in up in the sky,
right?
And you dock, and it's like there's basically two catwalks on either side, and you just go in. And there may or may not be people there. It's just a matter of if they drop people in or not.
Yeah, it's very much like that. And then the first time I went into a house, it was just like a very small. Because I think back then the houses were more vertical and less open, right? Because they're the giant city. So you go in and there's like this living room area. It's very much like a square, a very, very small square that you can usually someone in there to talk to for a quest. And then there's stairs that go upstairs to one bedroom, right? And it's the same thing for every house you go into in a city.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a square with stairs on the right side that go up to a bedroom.
You can tell budget was low on this.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting annoying. And then I was surprised they didn't have a weather system. So it never rains.
So they
snows.
mostly focused on story, gameplay, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Like, how are the characters? Are they pretty interesting, or is it?
For the most part, I think that they're pretty interesting. Like some of them have better stories than others. But I think I've gotten to the point where the story's just kind of for me. Like I'm still enjoying it. There's some interesting parts about it. I can't elaborate too much because some games like this, I just like to skip the stuff unless there's like God of War where there's a lot of cutscenes that kind of tell me what's going on, which is more like a movie, in which I enjoy. But I think some of the stuff you kind of have to you can find little notes around the world that are related to certain quests that help kind of explain certain things. And I'm just not the most into reading stuff unless it's something important.
Yeah,
But even then, I just don't like reading things in game.
Is it a challenging game?
I would say no.
Is there a difficulty setting?
There is a difficulty setting.
Okay, so what are you playing on? Normal?
I'm playing normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am let me pull up my little picture here. It shows me what I am. Because you have 3 classes you can choose from. There's one that's more like physical. So like you can pick up 2-handed weapons and basically you're just not hand-to-hand combat, but you have maces and hammers and swords and stuff like that. I picked the technical, which is more of one-handed blades, firearms, and elemental traps.
Doesn't surprise me.
So it's pretty much the hunter class, right? And then the other one was the magic user, which you have rings to use magic. Well, come to find out, if you're the technical guy, because they have it set on different things, mine's the technical. Well, you can learn how to craft bullets and basically never run out of ammo, and you do a crap ton of damage. Like, you can just steamroll people with your gun. So it's almost like too much of an advantage over time. And so far, I haven't gotten bored with it, but I mean, some of the creatures that are like a little higher level, like I can just steamroll them with my guy because I have so many bullets. And you can go to there's shops in the cities, and you have to get 2 different ingredients to craft bullets. And I think about every day they restock, so you can go to every city once a day, get all the crafting material you need, and just make a crap ton of bullets. Because at first I started out with like having 7. Maybe 12, and those would go pretty fast. So I was like, I got to really conserve my ammo. But then I was like, oh, wait, now I have almost 100 bullets. Like, I'm never going to run out. So you can kind of cheat the game in that way. And it may or may not be fun for you, but I think over time it might get a little boring.
Yeah.
So
I really want to play it just because
it's interesting.
It's got a cool concept, but
yes. Like
I'm
the
just
world
so worried
building,
that I'll fall off on it because I have so many games I've started and just haven't finished.
Right. I think you might like it. I feel like it's a little more casual, but there is some elements to it, especially starting off, that seem very, very RPG, right? There's a lot of that to it. You might feel like you need to manage your... Well, I felt like you don't have to manage your inventory as much. You have 200 bags of space or I guess that's carry weight, and I've looted a lot of things, and I've yet to have to be like, I got to throw something away now. But it's one of those things where you just go back to the city and sell stuff that you don't need. And I don't think I've switched out my armor in the past 5 hours I played this game. Like, I just feel like there's nothing to switch it out to. Like, I go to vendors and stuff and try to buy things, which money can be an issue at some points, but I'm just like, I found this one chess piece and I don't really need to switch it out because I don't think there's anything better than it right now. Yeah. Which kind of sucks because, RPG game, you kind of want to get gear from quests and stuff that might be better and then slowly upgrade over time. But at this point in time, I already feel like I'm a badass and I don't really need too much more,
That's weird.
Yeah. No, it's
just like the progression moved too quickly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Huh.
So the caveats with this game, I still think it's good and it's gotten very positive reviews on Steam. There are some people who are bashing it for some of the reasons that I've said. And, they have good points. Like you're paying $50, almost $60. And normally you can get a AAA game right now for gives you a better experience and more rounded experience overall. While this one's $50, so some people think it's a waste of money, and people shouldn't buy this game. But it's very Bioware-esque. I see where they're going with it because it's already gotten very positive, and I hear a lot of people saying good things about this game. I feel like it's already a commercial success. And with that, I'm hoping that their next game will be much more polished and rounded and complete. Now, they might patch this stuff over time to make it better, which is very possible, and it could go on sale later in its life cycle. But, if you have nothing else to play and you like Bioware games, I think you'll enjoy it. But there are caveats with it.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at the Steam reviews now, I kind of see that's a lot of people are saying, like, I really, really wanted to rate this game with a positive, like, plus, but because I enjoyed a lot of it and it was really well crafted and just had a really cool premise and did a lot of things right, but they just said there's some things where it just fell short, and they mentioned, like you said, the lip syncing, and so this one guy says that there's fake RPG elements in terms of choices.
Yeah.
And combat is not great if you're a ranged character, he was saying, which is interesting. And the world not being as open as you want it to be.
I found combat wasn't that bad. I mean, it's a little light on combat in the sense that you dodge like The Witcher, and then you can set traps, obviously, so people will come into your traps and or shoot them. But then early on, when I was running out of bullets, I had to go in and just, slice people up with my sword. But then, you don't have a lot of armor and health, so you got to dodge more. So there's this mechanic that's kind of fun. Now, over time, that might get a little boring, but for the time being, like, I thought it was fun. Thought the mechanics were fun.
I feel like this kind of game that I think is a really solid, like, $30 to $40 title. If it drops to that price, I think I might pick it up. And play it when I'm, like, in my lull period.
Right.
I think that would be a good
right.
good time for that.
But in a time where we're lacking a Bioware type game, an RPG type game that's just like Bioware, like it's nice to see this come out. But yes, I wish it went a little farther. Maybe they needed more time, but then again,
it seems like their team. I just looked up. Their team is 20 employees. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not that much.
That's an impressive feat. What they developed for only 20 people.
And so when you look at Bioware and they make a game like Anthem, of course we're gonna rag on them. It's like, you have so much money. How is this game not complete? But then you see these guys, and the game is technically not complete, but they only have 20 people. Like, they're doing the best they can. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, don't buy this game.
Right.
It's still impressive for what they did, and yes,
I mean, technically, it's like it's an indie game in a sense.
It's a triple I.
Yeah,
it's more of like a B-rated movie. I give it. You know what I mean?
Oh, and they use their own game engine. It's not Unreal. It's called the Silk Engine.
Nice.
And they do use freelancers and stuff like that. But this is a game developed by Spiders, so they're based in France. And they use it on all their games. So Fairy, of Orcs and Men, Mars, Warlogs, Bound by Flame, The Technomancer. Basically a bunch of games I've never really heard a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
But it does have a level builder, face editor, 3D sound system, GUI system, advanced dialogue system, things like that. So